and welcome back to another episode of the Ravens Call. I'm your host again, Tyler Cameron. If you haven't already or don't know what this podcast consists of, you can go to my intro video or go through the weeks with us. We are on week 15 this week. Got 3 weeks left until playoffs start and some very interesting games. We had a lot of good games, probably the best afternoon games I've ever seen come out. We had 5 in the afternoon, which doesn't normally happen, and 4 of those games were for big money, so to speak. But on that note, podcast is on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. You can find all the links to those on my Instagram page, the Ravens Call Podcast, or in any of those streaming services. But on that note, I hope everyone is having a great Wednesday and ready to listen to some exciting NFL and Baltimore Ravens news. All right. So, first off on the docket, we had a huge game for Thursday night, December 12th. We're getting close to that Christmas time. And this game was for a lot. The 49ers were trying to salvage their season and hopefully get into the playoff bidding. Whereas the Rams was trying to increase and hopefully get up to where the Seahawks were at the time. This game was more or less a shit show, to say the least. Not a good game from either team. But let's go over it. So the Rams, the Rams won 12-6. That shows you the score. No touchdowns, a lot of field goals. That's not normally from the Rams or the 49ers perspective. The Rams put up, I think was it 45 or 48 against the Bills the week prior, and the 49ers had put up, 34, I believe, against the Bears. So, but let's go over it. So for the Rams, Matthew Stafford, 16-27, 160 yards, just not a good game. Passing, running the ball, Kyren Williams, 29 carries, 108 yards. Puka Nacua, 7 receptions, 97 yards. And the big thing that I know a lot of fantasy owners and a lot of people in their fantasy playoffs hated was Cooper Kupp, 0 receptions, 0 yards. That was a huge killer. And the crazy part was they still won this game without Cooper Kupp doing anything, so to speak. For the 49ers, Brock Purdy, 14-31, threw a pick, 142 yards. DeMarcado Guerendo, I don't know how to say his last name. I just Guerendo, I believe, is 16 carries, 57 yards. George Kittle, 4 receptions, 61 yards. And that was it. Deebo Samuel's nowhere to be seen. It was just a bad game overall for both teams. But the Rams were able to take the win. They go to 8-6, which to put them in a half a game back of the Seahawks. We'll talk about the Seahawks game later, which that has now bounced the Rams into the number one for the number one spot in their division, the NFC West standings from that. 49ers go to 6-8. Very unlikely for them to make the playoffs at this point, but never say never. Sneak peek into one of the games, the Baltimore game we'll be talking about, a good win for the Ravens. But let's go into, I'm going to skip the Bronco game. We're going to go into that for the afternoon games because that one was really interesting and I'll go more in depth with that. Not really going to go into the Chiefs and Browns. It was the first time that the Chiefs haven't won by one score. Patrick Mahomes did get injured and is dealing with a high ankle sprain, so that was tough for him. So he may or may not play come Saturday, but yeah, that was that. Bengals Titans, that was an easy win for the Bengals, even though it was only a 10-point win. Good game from Cincy. But yeah, it was not no one was shocked by the score, but a lot of teams were pissed because the Titans put up 27 and almost had a chance against the Bengals, which, the Bengals are still trying to go for the playoffs. So, but let's go on to another morning game here, which was the Commanders and the Saints. Now, this was a very interesting game. I thought that Washington was just going to kind of coast to this one, and they took the pedal off the metal and almost let the Saints win this game. So Washington, Jaden Daniels, 25-31, 226, 2 touchdowns, but had 8 sacks. He ran for 66 yards. The run game wasn't too much, but then he had Scary Terry McLaurin, 7 receptions, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Huge game from him. They kind of were just coasting 14-0 at half, and then, Jake Haener came in, was starting, didn't play that well. And then Spencer Rattler came in, and he actually played pretty decent and actually got them to a point where they could come back. Alvin Kamara played really well, and they got injured, so hope for the best for him. Kamara was 5 carries, 12 yards, but really did it in the pass game with 4 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Now, the main portion was the Saints scored a touchdown with 9 seconds left. And there was a little bit of a buzz on the play call because the clock should have been rolling, and it should have ended the game. It should have ended the game point blank. But I don't know. It seems like there was a little malfunction. They're trying to make the game interesting. The Saints scored with 0 seconds on the clock, and then they went for 2, boldly enough. They could have tied the game, but boldly enough, they went for 2, and they didn't get it. And the Commanders win 20-19. Saints are 5-9. They had no real hope of anything at that point. Commanders go to 9-5, which is very big for a lot of teams that are 8 wins, because the Commanders have the last playoff spot. That's probably not going to change for a lot of things. But it creates the NFC to where pretty much everyone's trying to get the last spot for the Commanders or their division, which the division is Tampa Bay's division or the Rams/Seahawks division. Those are the only 2 ways that any real team can make the playoffs at this point. The NFC is pretty much set in their playoff ways. Cowboys blew out the Panthers, which was shocking because for the first time ever, I don't know how long for the Panthers, but the Panthers were favorites in this game to win. And I was kind of shocked. I do believe in the Panthers. I do believe that Bryce Young is going to play better. He's starting to feel a groove. Dallas's defense is still pretty good, but it was a tough game for them. But I think that they're starting to learn what kind of team they need to have behind them. But Cooper Rush had a good game, 18-29, 214 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rico Dowdle is starting to become the huge favorite running back, 25 carries, 149 yards. CeeDee Lamb had a good game, 9 receptions, 116 yards and a TD. So really good game from him. Very good game there. Bryce Young, 19-28, 219, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. The 2 picks really cost them. Hubbard wasn't really a factor. Jalen Coker, 4 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown. He had an 83-yard touchdown. But, Cowboys won 30-14 on that. Huge win for them. The Jets ended up winning against the Jaguars. This was kind of the one that was going down to the wire at the most point. New York finally had a good game, but it's too little too late. And for them winning this game, it kind of hurts them because now their draft pick is going to be even closer to the middle rather than getting a top 10 pick. But for Aaron Rodgers, 16-30, 289, 3 touchdowns. Good for him. Rodgers actually ran for 45 yards. The run game really wasn't too effective for Breece Hall. He did have a touchdown, though. It was more Adams, 9 receptions, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, 3 receptions, 56 yards, and a touchdown. So it was pretty effective, but if they start limiting Adams and Wilson, it's kind of be tough because there was not a lot other than those 2 at that point. For the Jaguars, played pretty well. Mac Jones, 31-46, 294, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions were the thing that really cost them the win at that point. But good shining star for Brian Robinson Jr., 10 receptions, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then backup tight end, who was now starting because Evan Ingram's out, Brenton Strange, 11 receptions, 73 yards. So Really good game from them passing, not as well on the run game, but really good game from them passing. It's really good to see for the Jaguars to be scoring some points. Trevor Lawrence is obviously done for the rest of the season, but Jets came out and scored a touchdown, won the game 35-25, 32-25. So good win for them, but at this point, both teams, it's pretty pointless who wins and who loses at that point. Supposed to be a good game here was Miami and the Texans, and I can honestly tell you that both teams looked like complete shit. That is an understatement to say the least. The Texans won this game 20-12, but both teams looked horrendous. And the Texans are supposedly in the playoff. The Texans are in the playoffs. The Texans are the 4 seed. They're going to stay the 4 seed with how they play because they have Kansas City next. They have Baltimore next. And then I'm just going to quickly peek here at their schedule. And they have the Titans, which the Titans will be probably a bounce back for them, maybe. But let's talk game over. Tua Tagovailoa at 29-40, 196 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. 3 picks really gave them momentum and got the Texans into field position where they were able to score. Jonnu Smith, 9 receptions, 46 yards, a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, 2 receptions, 36 yards. Waddle got injured, didn't come back. It was a tough game for them. Achane wasn't able to run the ball. They weren't able to pass the ball really well. It was bad. But on the offensive side for the Texans, it gets much worse. CJ Stroud, 18-26, 131 yards and 2 touchdowns. 131 yards he passed for. Terrible. They ran for 77 yards. Joe Mixon, 12 carries, 23 yards, so 1.9 a carry. That's ridiculous. He did have 5 receptions for 33 yards, but Nico Collins scored 2 touchdowns, but had 17 yards. They're not able to pass the ball or do anything offensively. And you're coming into 2 hot teams. Kansas City may get lucky and not have to face Patrick Mahomes, but they're still going to beat you if you play like this. And Baltimore's a team you do not want to face because if Baltimore does win against the Steelers, we're on a hot streak. To beat the Steelers and to push towards playoffs and hopefully get that dub on Christmas, that's what we're looking for. So it'll be a good game. I'm just checking something really quick. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game for them. But both teams played ridiculously bad. Miami puts themselves in a hard spot to make the playoffs. Texans got the win, and then the Colts lost. So the Texans are now the AFC South champions. So they get a playoff home team spot. Probably the 4 seed. I'm going to guess the 4 seed going forward. So now on to the afternoon games. I'm going to go over the one that didn't matter, and then I'll go over the 4 that did. So we're going to go over the Cardinals and Patriots. Drake May didn't have his best game, but did fairly well. He did throw a pick, but only 4 incompletions was pretty good. 202 yards, so 19-23, 202, touchdown and a pick. Pretty decent. Weren't really able to run the ball. Passing was there. He just needs some weapons, but he'll get there. For the Cardinals, Kyler Murray was able to pass it, but just they didn't get any touchdowns. That's what really, killed it for them. But 23 of 30, 224 yards. Good game from him. James Conner, beast. 16 carries, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Really good game from him. Trey McBride, Dortch had really good games, but, Arizona's sitting at 7-7. They're hoping that the Cardinals, that the Commanders lose 2 games mysteriously because they're trying to hope for a playoff spot, or they're 1 game behind the Seahawks and the Rams at that point. All right, we're going to talk Denver first. So we have 4 great afternoon games, which 4 great afternoon games doesn't happen at all. So the Broncos come in 8-5. Colts were 6-7. If the Colts won, it put them in a big boost. It took the Denver Broncos' hearts away because Denver has the Chargers, they have the Bengals, they have Kansas City. 3 huge teams that are very tough to face at that point in time. So it was very tough. It was more of a must-win game for Denver. But let's go over the game. Going over the game in an overview, the Colts look good in the first half, but that's normally how it goes for Denver. They normally give up points in the first 2 drives because they're starting to get a feel of what they're going to be running, and then they're able to adjust, and that's what they did. That's what they did against the Raiders. They did against a lot of other teams this season. So, and I knew going into this game, Anthony Richardson would blow it. He's not a good quarterback. He can pass the ball. I mean, he has the skills. He just doesn't have the right IQ. In essence, if he's rushed, he's going to just chuck it up. And that's what he did going forward on that too. Which they count it as a fumble, which it's not a fumble. I'll get to that in just a second. So let's go over to Colts. Anthony Richardson, 17-38, 172, and 2 interceptions. That's not shocking. I knew that he live and die by him. He's going to die, at that point. Jonathan Taylor, good game except for one play. 22 carries, 107 yards, was able to run the ball effectively on a good rushing defense. Except he had a chance to score a touchdown and he dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line and the ball went out of bounds, so Denver was able to get the ball. That was when I knew. Right then, Denver won. Denver was going to win this game. That is a huge momentum shift that you cannot give another team, and they did. Anthony Richardson, 7 carries, 46 yards, a touchdown. Good for him. Pittman was there, but it was not good game passing. They had 3 fumbles lost, which Jonathan Taylor's one was based on that end zone fumble. Pittman was a huge hit from the safety that really helped Denver get in field position. And Mitchell's here is not actually a fumble, in my opinion. So what happened was they were trying to trick play where the quarterback threw it to a wide receiver and the quarterback runs to the other side and the receiver throws it to him. Well, Mitchell here threw it to his quarterback, and Nick Bonitto for Denver was able to catch the ball and run it in for a touchdown. That, to me, is not a fumble for a touchdown. That's an interception for a touchdown. So I think that they're wrong on the stat line of that because it was thrown. So Nick Bonitto was able to score a touchdown, and it was huge. That really put them in the driver's seat and put them up 13-24 at that point. But let's go over the game for Denver. It was not the best game for Bo Nix. He went 20-33, only 130 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Colts defense is a really good defense. They're very underrated when it comes to it. But, he made some passes that were pretty careless. His first pick, I just don't think he saw the guy. But he was able to bounce back and was able to help the team win. Rushing game is just still not there, and that's the thing that's killer. Javonte Williams, 6 carries, 15 yards. Jalen McLaughlin, 7 for 21. Estime, 5 for 13. Like, they're relying so heavily on the pass game, and that's what's going to kill them. You need a run game to complement Bo. But Sutton did well. Offense just wasn't really there. It really relied on the defense, and the defense was able to step up. And Marvin Mims' punt returns and kick returns were very well done. He gave them a huge boost in what they were trying to do. And hats off to them. Huge win for Denver. They won 31-13. They're 9-5, which puts them in the driver's seat to pretty much where if they win one game in the last 3, doesn't matter who they win against, they're in. So one win wins it all at that point. That's the guarantee. You don't want to get into a tiebreaker with them. They do have a tiebreaker on the Colts. Miami does have some tough opponents still to where Miami could, and the Bengals are still there. So it's going to be tough, but I honestly can see Denver pulling that last spot kind of away, but they're not even in the last spot. The Chargers are right now, which is, to me, very shocking. But let's go over probably the game of the week. Yeah, an understatement. Was the Bills and the Lions. Now, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are fighting for MVP. It does depend on records because Lamar Jackson hasn't beat statistically, but Josh Allen has shown how valuable he is. Like without Josh Allen, this team doesn't function. So with Lamar, so the edge is a little more for Josh Allen. So you know, if the Bills end up losing like a game or two and the Ravens go 4-0, this could be a lot closer to an MVP race. But you never know. I don't think that Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson really care about winning MVP. They want the Super Bowl trophy, and they want to beat Mahomes. That's their trophy at this point. And then the second one is the Super Bowl because they don't want to be known as the guy that can't beat Mahomes. But let's get into the game. Josh Allen, 23 of 34, 362 yards and 2 touchdowns. Beautiful game from him. James Cook, 14 carries, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen, rushed for 2 as well. Just a beast game from him. Ty Johnson, backup running back, was used as a wide receiver, and they just couldn't contain him. 5 receptions, 114 yards. Really good game from him. Shakir, 6 receptions, 39 yards, a touchdown. Just really good game from the Bills. They're 11-3. They look really good. Now it all comes down to just finishing strong for them, and then hoping that it continues into the playoffs. But the defense was very vulnerable on both sides for Detroit and the Bills. Now on to Detroit. Jared Goff, 38-59, 494 yards and 5 touchdowns. Really good game from him, but just wasn't enough to win. They were playing from behind the entire game. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 carries, 31 yards, a touchdown. They didn't run the ball too much because they were so far behind. David Montgomery, he actually is out for the season now, so hopefully he gets better. That's a tough loss for the Lions because they have that pair in the rushing game, and now they don't, so they have to rely solely on Gibbs to run the ball. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 14 carries, 193 yards, a touchdown. Sam Laporta, 7 receptions, 111 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 5 receptions, 83 yards, and touchdown. It was a good game passing, but there was just a lot that went into this. Defenses were non-existent. But the Bills were able to pull out on top, 48-42. 90 points were put up in this game. That's crazy to me. But Bills were able to show that they are a top team in the NFL. Lions took a step back with a lot of their injuries, so we'll see. We'll see what happens there. On to another good game was the Steelers and the Eagles. Steelers were not able to do anything offensively. Russell Wilson, 14-22, 128 yards and a touchdown. Only 128 yards, 56 yards rushing in total. Weren't able to pass. Without George Pickens, it really hurt them offensively. For the Eagles, they were able to somewhat run and pass at will, more passing. Jalen Hurts, 25-32, 290, 2 touchdowns. Really good passing game from him. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith show up. A.J. Brown, 8 receptions, 110 yards and touchdown. Devontae Smith, 11 receptions, 109 yards and a touchdown. So really good game from them. Saquon didn't really have to be used. 19 carries, 65 yards. Good game from him. But yeah, I mean, statement win for the Eagles. They are now tied for the number 1 seed with the Lions. Steelers fall back to 10-4, making it even closer. Steelers play the Ravens on Saturday, which really is going to be tough. A tough game for them because they now have to play the Ravens at home. And if the Ravens win, then it kind of becomes, I don't know how it's based. If it's all based off strength of schedule, then the Ravens are going to get the 1 seed or get the division lead over them at that point. But we'll see because Steelers, this was their first game of many. Steelers go Ravens, Chiefs, Cincinnati. So very tough road ahead for them. Ravens got it a little easier towards the end. We still have the Steelers which are arguably probably one of the best defenses because they just Mike Tomlin's a great coach. He has the right pieces. Mike Tomlin is the MVP of the Steelers, has been for years. Our team has always been better than the Steelers, but we lose because Mike Tomlin knows how to do the right things at the right time. So, but it's going to be a good game next week. Steelers offense really needs to have a comeback game for them because that was terrible. 13 points put up. On to the last afternoon game, which was a must-win for both teams. Chargers were 8-5, just trying to keep hold of the playoff spot with some momentum. Tampa Bay was trying to keep hold of their lead because, they lose the tiebreaker with the Falcons, so they have to make sure they're always staying a game ahead of them. So it can be tough, but huge game from Tampa Bay. Let's see their schedule coming forward. Cowboys, Panthers, Saints. So decently easy schedule for them to finish the season strong on that, from my opinion. But let's get into it. Baker Mayfield, 22 of 27, 288 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Man, was chef's kiss. Bucky Irving, 15 carries, 117 yards. Rashid Weiss, 15 carries, 64 yards. Both had really good games rushing. But the big story for me is Mike Evans, 9 receptions, 159 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Put himself back in the conversation to get to a 1,000-yard season, which he's been in the league for, I believe, 10 or 11 straight, 11 seasons, 10 or 11 seasons. I think this is his 11th year. He's had a 1,000-yard season every season. It's not really ever been done before. And we're hoping that this season he can come back and do that again. He was injured for 5-6 games, so he's trying to bounce back and get that at that point. So wishing you the best, Mike Evans, on that. Hoping to finish strong because I like Tampa Bay. I don't think the Falcons can entertain any wins or maybe put up a fight in the playoffs at all. So, but Jalen McMillan, their rookie, 5 receptions, 75 yards and a touchdown. Really good game from him. We're able to ball out in the second half. Herbert, 21 of 33, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Not his best game. He got his ankle rolled up, so he's still a little still a little hurt. Not a good game running. Receiving wasn't really there. It's tough because the Chargers do have a home game again on Thursday night, so it's a quick turnaround for them, especially with Herbert and his ankle. But they played the Denver, who's a really hot team at this point. Both teams trying to keep, stay in the playoffs and, get to that point. Denver, I think, can clinch a playoff spot if they win. Chargers can put it to where, they rest easy a little bit because the Chargers, they got Broncos, Patriots, Raiders. Patriots and Raiders should be pretty easy wins for the Chargers. So, it's going to be a tough Thursday night game. There's a lot to go for both teams there. That is it for the Sunday afternoon games. We're going to go Sunday night game where it was just a slugfest for Green Bay. Green Bay shows that if you're not Minnesota and you're not Detroit, you're not beating the Packers. The Eagles won week 1 off of a Hail Mary, which, teams still knew. But, yeah, Green Bay played really well. Jordan Love, 20 of 27, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, no sacks. Josh Jacobs, 26 carries, 94 yards, a touchdown. They were able to pass the ball at will. Defense played really well. It was a blowout. Geno Smith, 15, 19, 149 yards, an interception. Then got injured. Sam Howell played terribly. Weren't able to run the ball. DK was nowhere to be seen. Yeah. So Green Bay won 30-13. They're 10-4. Seahawks are 8-6 now, which now they've given the title of the NFC West to the Rams because the Rams have the tiebreaker. So the Rams are the team to beat for the playoff spot in that division. I'm not really going to go over the Monday night games. Vikings beat the Bears 30-12. Bears looked so bad. Never won at home. Never won an away game all season. Vikings are 12-2. Now they're tied for the lead in their division, so they could get out of a wild card spot, maybe have a home game, but we'll see. Good game from Aaron Jones, from Jay Jets. Just a good game. Not a good game from the Bears. Falcons are now 7-7. Scored a touchdown in the first quarter, and then got a safety and 2 field goals against a Raiders team that didn't have Max Crosby, didn't have a lot of their players. Yeah, to me that's a joke. You barely beat a 2-11 team, and you're fighting for your playoff lives. There seems to be no motivation at that point. So, but that is it for the NFL Week 15. Now, we're going to go on to the Baltimore Ravens, the team that you know and love, the team that you're here for. My team, Lamar Jackson's team, the Ravens. All right. So this game was a blowout. That's not shocking. What's shocking to me is that the Giants put up 14 points. See, I know the Ravens. I'm pretty sure that 14 points to the Giants is disrespectful because we have the Steelers, we have the Texans coming up. Those teams are not teams that we want to get into a slugfest with. We do not want to have it to where they can score. Because especially the Steelers defense is kryptonite to our offense. I don't know what it is. Every year. They hold us to a low scoring. And our defense our defense is struggling, but, we were able to play pretty well. But let's get into it. Lamar Jackson, 21 of 25, 295 touchdowns. Brilliant game from him. He actually lost a fumble on the first play of the game, and then after that, locked in. He had more touchdowns than he had incompletions. Really good game from him. Derrick Henry, 14 carries, 67 yards. Lamar Jackson, 6 carries, 65 yards. Now you may be thinking to yourself, 14 carries, 67 yards for Derrick Henry. Why so low? Pretty sure it's because it was a blowout. We knew it. So we want to make sure our air attack is going well because we're going to need a little bit of the air attack going forward, but also we're saving Derrick Henry's legs. We know we're a playoff bound team. We have that confidence in us. We need to make sure that we're able to run the ball with Derrick Henry effectively in the third and fourth quarter. When it's cold outside, when we have to make sure that we can run it effectively, because that's what we signed him for. We didn't sign him to just win Offensive Player of the Year. We signed him to help us down the stretch in the playoffs, to help us be that team to where, we don't have to rely on Lamar Jackson to run the ball all the time. We can rely on his arm. We can rely on the read option to make us more dangerous because you have to pick one. And if you pick the wrong one, we'll make you pay. Bateman had a good game. Rashad Bateman, 3 receptions, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Justice Hill is playing really well for us on the kick return, punt return, receiving game. 6 receptions, 53 yards. 5 receptions, 61 yards and touchdown. Zay Flowers there. Pretty slow game for most. Right now, Deontay Johnson is dismissed from the team right now. The reason we don't, and a lot of people will say, well, why haven't we released him? The reason we don't want to release him is because we do not want him going to a team, especially the Steelers, because he will go back to the Steelers. He's a petty guy. So keep him on the team. He's a rental. He's already a rental. We're fine with that if he's a rental. We want to keep him on the team. Maybe see if he works. But there's a guy named OBJ right now that just got released by the Dolphins that I want back on our team from a leadership perspective because he already knows the playbook. Putting him over Aguilar will help immensely for this team because they have to respect OBJ. They just have to respect him. We have Zay Flowers. We have Bateman who's going on. We have Andrews likely. I believe OBJ can just kind of help us. Just sign with us to help us with the playoffs, and then you can go on your merry way. But, this is the team. We need him from a motivation standpoint. Defense played well, I guess. Giants, I'm not even going to talk about Giants. I mean, Neighbors is your only guy. That's it. But they had 14 points. And the reason they had 14 points was because Ravens had 12 penalties for 112 yards. Unacceptable. We lead the league in penalties, penalty yards, everything. That is what shoots us in the foot. We can easily be one of the top teams in the AFC if we do not commit penalties. But, I mean, that's the kryptonite right now. So, but that is it for the Ravens in-depth analysis of that kind of game. We're going to go on to week 16. Week 16 is huge week for a lot of teams. It's the week also before Christmas, because we will have some games on Christmas. But let's get into it. So we have a Thursday night game. Huge quick turnaround for the Broncos and the Chargers. One coming off a huge win in the Broncos. The other one coming off a stinging defeat for the Chargers. Chargers are favored by 3. I don't know. It's a must-win game for the Chargers, but the Broncos want this so much. I think that Bo Nix has gotten better since their last matchup. Let's see. So they played the Broncos week 5. I believe that the Broncos are going to upset the Chargers here. And it counts as an upset there. So I'll go Broncos. Steelers, Ravens. I'm going to go Ravens, but I do not think we're going to win by 6. I think we're going to be under that spread. It's going to be a field goal type game again. Always is. But we cannot shoot ourselves in the foot. We cannot be the Ravens that shoot the Ravens. That's what we do. And it's always against the Steelers. The Steelers just know us. I don't know how they do. They just have a mark. I don't care about the Chiefs. Chiefs, we can beat. We cannot figure out a way to beat the Steelers. That's just my opinion. And if you win here, and then we're able to beat the Texans, we're able to beat the Browns and go into the playoffs after our bye week 4-0, that's huge. Huge. So I do think the Ravens will win. It does depend if Pickens plays as well, because if Pickens doesn't play, that's huge. I know that TJ Watt might not play. I'm pretty sure TJ Watt's going to play. That guy's a freaking trooper. Non-participant in the walkthrough on Tuesday, so that's going to be tough. TJ Watt's going to play. There's no way TJ Watt doesn't play. TJ Watt's the only guy that scares me. And rightfully so. Texans and Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by 2.5. The reason they're favored by 2.5 is because they believe that the Chiefs are going to be playing with, what's his name? Carson Wentz and not Patrick Mahomes. I still think the Chiefs will lose if they have Carson Wentz, but they'll win if they have Mahomes. That'll be my pick there. Falcons, Giants, that's a joke. Lions, Bears, that's a joke. Cincinnati will beat the Browns. Colts will they need to beat the Titans. These two teams, the Bengals need to win. Colts need to win to stay alive. You lose, you're out. Rams and Jets. This could be a good game. Jets have found their groove. The Rams have started to click. The Rams really need a win because, they're tied with Seattle. And right now, Seattle plays the Vikings, which if the Rams can win, they're up pretty much 2 games because they would go to 9-6. The Seahawks go to 8-7. The reason I say 2 games is because, even if they kind of lose, they're still tied, so to speak. So they kind of have a little more of an advantage on that. Eagles, Commanders, that could be a good game, but I do think the Eagles will win that. The Commanders are just, they're not experienced enough. They just don't have the weapons like the Eagles do. Cardinals and Panthers, Cardinals will win. Vikings, Seahawks, Vikings will win. Bills, Patriots, Bills will win. Raiders, Jaguars. I honestly don't know. That's a toss-up to me. I have no idea. Both teams suck. 49ers and Dolphins. The Dolphins are favored by 1.5. I'm going to go 49ers. I would love the 49ers to win. That's just me. Bucks and Cowboys. Going Bucks. Bucks are playing really well. I just like what they're doing over there. I like Baker Mayfield a lot. And then the Monday night game is the Packers and the Saints. Packers are going to win by a lot there. Well, that's it for the Week 16 previews and predictions. I'm going to go over the standings. The reason I'm going to go over the standings is we're getting into that point where every game matters. Every week is getting closer and closer. So let's get into it. So Chiefs and Bills have claimed home field advantage and they've won their divisions. So the Texans. Steelers have clinched a playoff berth because there are 3 weeks left in the season. They're 10-4. Even if they lose every game now, they're still in the playoffs. On that. So the Ravens are 9-5 at the 5 seed. Broncos are same record, 9-5, but the Ravens beat the Broncos early this season, so they get the 5 seed. Chargers are 8-6. 2 games behind the Chargers are the Colts, Dolphins, and the Bengals. Now, it's really tough. I don't know how things are recorded in the essence of, are the Raven, is it strength of schedule, or are we basing things off conference? Because I think that the Ravens, if they beat the Steelers, they're both 3-2 in the division. Yes, the Steelers have a better conference record. But, if you look at strength of schedule, and the value that we play against, we're playing teams that are, over 500. They're playing teams that are barely over 400. That's no. But enough about that. So the Colts, Dolphins, and Bengals are 2 games behind the Chargers. Chargers really need to win this next game. I do think that even if they lose, it's not the worst case in the world, because the Chargers do play, again, they do play the Patriots, they do play the Raiders, which I think that they're pretty confident in their defense and their offense to win those 2 games, to where they'll end up the season 10-7. Now the Broncos, if they win, they can break open the champagne. They're in the playoffs, because there's no way that anyone can get them. So it's a win and in scenario for them. Chargers trying to hold a lot to that. Colts have to win. Pretty much the Bengals, they have to win out, have the Dolphins lose 2, Colts lose 2, Chargers lose 3. Yeah, there's a lot to it. The Bengals have the least amount of chance, but there's still a chance. On to the NFC, it's pretty much locked up. I don't know why they have the Saints not eliminated. The Saints are 5-9, right? They're 5-9. Now let me understand something here. So the Commanders are 9-5, right? Saints are 5-9. How in the world, with 3 games left, do they somehow get the 7 seed? They don't. So I don't know. I just read that they kept putting them in the playoff hunt. I'm like, you're 5-9. You're 4 games back of the lead. There's no way that you could get up. But I digress. Lions and Eagles have clinched a playoff spot. So have the Vikings. They both have not clinched their divisions because the Eagles still play the Commanders this week, which they're 3 games back, and the Lions and the Vikings are tied, as well as the Packers are 2 games behind the Vikings and the Lions. We got the Lions 1 seed, Eagles 2 seed, Tampa Bay at 3, Rams at 4. Tampa Bay, they're trying to hold off the Falcons at 7-7. They pretty much cannot lose another game because you're kind of just playing it as you keep winning, you're going to be one step ahead. Because the Falcons have a pretty easy schedule going forward. They have the tiebreaker. You cannot lose. Which the Tampa Bay, let's talk Tampa Bay schedule. Tampa Bay has Cowboys, Panthers, Saints, which very, very good games for them to win there versus the Falcons, who have Giants, Commanders, Panthers. So they do have a tough game in the Commanders, which you could maybe bank on, but highly unlikely. For the Rams, they're 8-6. They are tied with the Seahawks. They hold the tiebreaker on the Seahawks. The Rams have Jets, Cardinals, Seahawks, which, again, really tough games. Cardinals are really good. Seahawks are really good. Jets are starting to become a team. Now we got Seahawks at 8-6, which they got the Vikings and the Bears and the Rams. So they got the Vikings. So they're probably going to lose against the Vikings, which puts them in a bad spot. Let's talk Cardinals here. Cardinals are 8-7. They play the Panthers. So they have the best shot, but they do play the 49ers at the end. So it's going to come down to the wire for that division for the 5, 6, 7. Vikings 12-2, Packers 10-4, Commanders 9-5. Now, there is a spot for the Seahawks. There is still a spot for the Cardinals and the Falcons, but it's very unlikely. I mean, the Commanders 9-5. They play the Eagles, Falcons, and Saints. So pretty much all they have to do is win against the Cowboys and they're in. Because I don't think that there's any way that the Falcons and the Cardinals make it. But could be wrong. That's what we're here for. But, that is it for this week. Week 16 is a huge week before Christmas. So hoping to get some good, fun games out there. So very excited to see what happens in the playoff picture for next week. Well, that is it for this episode. I'm so thankful for all of you who are listening. The podcast is going to be live every Wednesday at 12. Every week. It will be live next week on Wednesday on Christmas. But I will be recording it before the Monday night game because I do have plans on the 24th, so I won't be able to take the time and edit everything. But I do want to get you guys the episode out on Christmas. If you're willing to take the time out of your Christmas day to listen to me, all the more for it. Thank you so much. But I will have it out Christmas Day. If you want to listen to me on Christmas, that's great. If not, it's fine. I'll make sure to post something on my Instagram page on Christmas saying Happy Christmas and my episode is up. Remember, my podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Please make sure to like and subscribe, whatever platform you prefer. Feel free to comment or ask any questions if you want to know more about the NFL, how football is played, teams, my opinions on football, whatever you need. Ask that question. I will bring it up in the next video. I'm here for you. I am here at your disposal. Also, all music and sound is provided by my brother-in-law, Justin. So again, Justin, thank you for that. Well, Ravens Nation, thanks again for joining me on this episode. Until next time, stay fierce, stay loyal, and keep rooting for that purple and black. I will see you next time on The Ravens Call.